And we're ready to go. We're on?
We're on.
We're on. Okay, good. Okay, live from downtown Willowdale at the heart of Willowdale Avenue and Bishop Avenue in downtown Willowdale is Andrew's little rant. Last 10 days or so ago, I did a thing about the Pan Am Games. And this is a bit of a redux or an update, I don't know what to call it. But the only reason I even bring it up again is because there's been a backlash against people like me who hate this stuff. I hate sports circuses. I hate sports extravaganzas. I think they're a waste of money. And what really got me going was when I read a column in Sunday's Toronto Star, by Bob Hepburn. And Bob Hepburn writes, "Why Toronto deserves the 2024 Olympics." Well, of course, you know, that got I already have high blood pressure. That's just the stuff that gives you a stroke, basically. And he was saying, "Oh my God, now that the Pan Am Games are going, they seem to be relatively successful." I'm only a couple of days in, but we need the financial plague of the Olympics. And I'm thinking, is this serious? Is this like I couldn't believe when I read it. I got so angry, and immediately I of course wrote a letter to the Star. Of course, they published one of my letters last week about how much I disliked this stuff. And so in last week's letter, I said, you know what, they had published, I think if you watched the last video, was published a list of the people who are responsible for the Pan Am Games, and they portray them as heroes. Of course, I see them as villains, and I wrote the letter accordingly saying they should be, thank you for giving us information so we can post it in the post office, because yes, that's a definitely most wanted list. So Bob Hepburn writes, we should, now that we've doing the Pan Am Games, why not go for the Olympics? And of course, that just outrages me because there's a sort of sycophantic sort of thing going on in the media, but we can't be a legitimate world-class city until we get the Olympics. And Heather Hiscox, the CBC did this really sycophantic, to use that term again, interview with Thomas Bach, head of the International Criminal Syndicate known as the International Olympic Committee. He's the chief consigliere. And she was sort of begging him, please give Toronto the Olympics, please give us billions of dollars in deficits and chaos. And she was just begging him to give us this financial nightmare. And I couldn't believe it. And I was thinking, what makes people in the media in particular swallow the Kool-Aid? Because no one else in Toronto seems to care about the Pan Am Games. I don't see any people I've ever talked to wanting the Olympics either. But it's just people in the media seem to want this. And the CBC is horrible because they're the chief culprit. They're big into this and all that. But I thought, what I thought was like, a lot of people like me are criticized because I'm naysayers, and there have been lots of letters going against people who are naysayers and all of this. But the point is this: it's not the inconveniences, it's not the road closures, it's not the increased congestion on public transit or on the highways or HOV lanes or any of that. It's the fact that public monies can be better spent. All right, public monies can be better spent. Heather Hiscox at the CBC and all the prima donna journalists there, Bob Hepburn, the editorial board of the Toronto Star, anyone who supports this stuff, live on $650 a month. That's what you get on social assistance in Ontario. Live on that, and then you'll realize that the public monies can be better spent. Live on the unemployment insurance you get now, which is pathetic. Are you looking for affordable housing? Do these people have to ever look for affordable housing? Are you kidding? They're living in expensive condominiums in downtown Toronto. You have to look for affordable housing. You live on social assistance or unemployment. You know that public monies can be better spent. We should not be building subways or public transit in general, infrastructure upgrades, just because we want to get some international sports circus. We should be doing it because it's the right thing to do for our society. This is about society building and what kind of country and what kind of province, what kind of city we want to live in. So we should do this because it's the right thing to do. And the Star had an editorial, and Bob Hepper reported in this column called "The Golden Legacy for Toronto." And they were talking about all the sports venues that we're going to get. But who cares? They don't benefit the general public. These are for elite athletes, prima donna elite athletes. They don't generally benefit the public. And let's face it, these prima donna athletes, they're our heroes. They're fighting for Canada. Forget it. They're fighting for money. It's show me the money, because they know if they win a gold medal, particularly at the Olympics, it's just money. I'm sorry. You know what? These people don't get my respect. They're not doing anything for society. It's all about them. And we build these elite facilities for them, and they don't benefit the general public. You know what we do with all this money that we're spending on this crap? Put it into community centers across Canada, across Ontario, Toronto, the GTA. Put it in community centers with pools, gym facilities, squash courts. Let's put more tennis courts into parks. Let's put more skating rinks in during the winter into parks, and make sure they're open well into March, and make sure they're all free. That's what we do if we want people to get physically active into sport. We don't put money in these elite sports venues. What a waste! And it only benefits the prima donna athletes who are going to make millions of dollars after all these games are finished. So I'm pretty cynical about sport and so-called amateur athletes, because that's a joke, right? We all know it's a joke. I'm not going to go on more about the Pan Am Games and the Olympics. We don't want that plague. We don't want to have to bribe the most criminal. I mean, let's face it, right? The International Olympic Committee is the biggest criminal syndicate in the world. FIFA is second. A lot of these sports bodies are corrupt. They have their local hucksters like David Peterson here, the former premier here in Toronto. And we don't want to have anything to do with this. And we shouldn't be bribing and cajoling these people. Don't we have any dignity as a city, as a country? These people shouldn't even be allowed. Thomas Bach shouldn't even be allowed into Canada. He represents a criminal operation, the International Olympic Committee. Oh, it's just like, and then you got, I'm going to ramble again, but CBC's Heather Hiscox doing this sycophantic interview begging for him to bring the Olympics to the city. Please, no, stay away. And like I said, to all the people who love this stuff, you paid for it. Bob Hepburn and the Toronto Star, you pay for it. The Toronto Star editorial board, you pay for it. The CBC, all the high-paid, under-talented prima donnas at the CBC, you pay for it. Everyone else who loves this stuff, you pay for it. Don't let taxpayers pay for it, okay? And like I said, live on $650 a month in social assistance, and then you'll get the idea where public money should be spent. Okay, that leads me to Greece, where the Greeks spent almost $15 billion on the 2004 Athens Olympics. Now, obviously not part of all of Greece's financial difficulties, but a lot of people link it to that. They didn't have the money. They thought they'd get more money back in return. It would benefit them. Tourism did go up somewhat, but no. They spent money they did not have on this in 2004, and that a lot of people say this is part of the reason they have this current financial difficulties. Greece's problems are complex, but let me get this out of the way first. Yes, the Greeks do need to reform their tax system. A lot of people in Greece do not pay taxes, and they do have an over-regulatory it's hard to start a new business in Greece, and they need to reform that. They need to make some basic reforms, but saying that, they don't need to be put under this punitive, horrible basically sanctions that they've been put under by Northern European countries, in particular Germany, the European Central Bank, the International Monetary Fund, what I used to call the International Murder Foundation. The Greeks are suffering. Their economy shrunk 25%. Unemployment is well beyond 25% and higher for younger people. Their economy has shrunk by 25% because of the austerity measures imposed on them, basically by Northern European countries, particularly Germany, and it doesn't get you anywhere. People are suffering. They burn furniture. Athenians are burning furniture in the winter because it still gets cold in Athens in the winter, just to keep warm. The Globe referred to the other day, there's a humanitarian crisis in Greece. We talk about humanitarian crisis in Syria and elsewhere. There's a humanitarian crisis in Greece, a part of the Eurozone. And yes, the Greeks are divided because they don't really want it. They see democracy as the foundation. They created it. They see it as their legacy. This is the country of Aristotle and Socrates and Pericles and they feel that why are everyone coming down on them? And they don't really want to leave the Eurozone or the European Union for that matter, because they see that Europe is their project too. And they're the foundations of democracy, and it's all, democracy in all its flawed and failed ways. I always like to call them corptocracies because we don't really live in a democracy; we live in more of a corptocracy. But we still live in some semblance of that. But the thing is, Paul Krugman said in the New York Times the other day, and he hates austerity measures. They don't work. Paul Krugman is the New York Times columnist, won the Nobel Prize for Economics. He hates austerity. He thinks never works by punishing people. You got to be Keynesian. You got to be Keynesian and pump money in the economy, make sure people are living okay. That'll benefit everybody. He mentioned in the New York Times the other day, he was talking about Britain. Britain's going through this incredible austerity program on the Cameron government. But the British economy is actually doing quite well. And, we even see that in Canada here with Harper, right? This obsession with balancing the budget when you really don't have to. Austerity doesn't work. You've got to pump money into the economy. And certainly in Greece's case, you have to. Debt relief across the board, Spain, Portugal, Greece. Debt relief for certain. Then pump some money into the economy. And don't make people suffer. It just creates anger and resentment. And who, like I said, who made Germany the boss? Why is Angela Merkel the boss? European history is old. But yes, the Germans, they didn't have to. The Germans were angered about reparations after World War I. Of course, that led to resentment and the rise of the Nazis and all that. When you got that, and then in World War II, they didn't have to pay reparations because,
But isn't most of the bailout money coming from Germany for Greece anyway?
Some of it, yeah.
Well, it's not some, but most, right?
Well, it's
from Germany anyway.
The key, Germany is bailing out Greece to an extent, and the Germans don't like it, and they're pissed. But the bottom line is, when the Greeks say, hey, well, the Germans owe us, almost $300 billion in reparations for the Second World War. Yeah, it's a bit of hyperbole, and that, that's right. That's done and all that. But they're, think about it. If you're a Greek, the Germans invaded you, slaughtered a lot of your citizens. Hey, Greece didn't occupy anybody. Greece hasn't invaded anybody in the 20th century. Greece didn't start any wars. They occupied the Ottomans and the Germans. And and I know history is history, and what the Allies and particularly the United States did to reconstruct Europe after the Second World War was probably a smart thing, obviously. There were some bright minds in Washington. Obviously, they didn't want to create the same conditions after the First World War. But, when the Greeks talk about reparations, you can kind of get it, when they're talking about what, 250 billion, I think, right?
279.
279 billion. You kind of get it. That never happened, and that just irritates the Germans. They don't want to be reminded of the fact that they occupied and killed a lot of Greek citizens. But you kind of get where that's coming from. But that's so, basically, and now they reached the deal now, a temporary deal, I guess. This is a Greek tragedy. It goes on and on. I know they reached a deal today, and a temporary deal, wherever that will go, I don't know. Part of me thinks the Greeks should leave the Eurozone and have the drachma and devalue the currency, and exports will go up and it'll be better. But I understand a lot of Greeks don't want to do that because, like I said, the European project is theirs. So that leads me to the whole end of this rambly thing here. But this was a good idea. The Eurozone, the European Union came out of the destruction of 2 world wars, but it hasn't worked. But I guess nothing's perfect in life. And the fact that we're trying to get Europeans to get along and not kill each other, the fact, well, not me, but the Europeans are trying to do that, that's probably a good thing. And I think that we all got to get along. But there's going to be temporary hiccups here. And if there's more pain for Greece to come because they want to be part of the Eurozone, well, maybe I think they should exit it because they don't need any more pain. These people are suffering. But the European project in general, trying to reunite Europe after what the horrors of the 20th century, yeah, I think it's a good idea. But the European project is suffering hiccups right now. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea. I do think that the rich countries of Europe, the Dutch are nasty on this too. The Dutch, the Germans, some of the richer countries in Northern Europe, you've got to be good on. If they want this project to succeed and they really believe in it, then they've got to give Greece debt relief and make the terms easier. And and it goes back to international creditors. And I am rambling here, but this Globe piece the other day, it says, Greece regroups as clock keeps ticking. And then here, Ontario's credit rating downgraded over concerns about debt. Let's face it, Ontario's not Greece. But the Wynne government wants to put money into infrastructure and all that. Great idea. But the bond gods in New York, they don't think it's such a great idea. And that goes the same to Greece. Poor people, people, they don't want you. As a government, you're constrained. If you want to do good things for the people, you're very constrained. Okay, and I'm rambling and I've gone on longer, but when Bob Rae came into power in 1990, and this is related to this and related to what Greece is going through, Wall Street and Bay Street didn't give him a chance, okay? Gerald Kaplan had a really good piece in the Globe a few years back saying how they just took him apart. He didn't have a chance. Bob Rae didn't have a chance. And Bob Rae didn't lead a failed government. He didn't have a chance to do anything because the bond gods of Bay Street in New York went after him. With the Alberta election with Notley, I don't think she'll suffer the same fate. I think she's got a bit of a honeymoon and she probably has learned from what Rae went through. But you don't have a lot of power. Even if you bring in a sort of mildly left of center government, you don't have a lot of power because the internet, the international financial system, which is fundamentally corrupt, will not let you do a lot of things. And that's why Greece, Ontario, Alberta, they're linked. And that's why you don't want to spend stupid public monies on things like the criminal syndicate known as the IOC, because they're all linked, right? That's no conspiracy here, but these are all the same crooks. They're all rich people, and they will all benefit at the expense of the poor. So I've rambled on way longer than I wanted to, but that's pretty much it. All I'm saying is, if you don't like sports circuses like the Pan Am Games and people say you're a naysayer, I think your argument is, well, is there not better uses for public monies? Whether that's community centers and basic infrastructure, social programs. That's the key. That's the point of this rambly uh,
YouTube video.
YouTube video, and I actually recorded from this first one because I was rambling even longer. But hey, there's so much to talk about, right? And all I want to say is, based on one of the last videos that I did, was there is now a debate about the Confederate flag in the U.S. Even though, and it has been taken down on the legislative grounds in Columbia and South Carolina, but the fact that the Daytona 500, they still wanted to really show it and we're proud of it, says something. And it leads me to someone wrote in Now Magazine a few weeks ago that the Americans need to go through a denazification program. Speaking about Germany, Germany was forced to go through a denazification program after the Second World War. Well, I think in many ways the Americans need to go through the same thing. And and in many ways the Americans need to actually go through the Enlightenment, which Europe went through in the Renaissance era. And but when it comes to the Olympics, maybe people write these articles about we want the Olympics. Maybe in Toronto, maybe a lot of people in the Toronto media need to go through the Enlightenment as well. And on that note, that's it. Sorry to ramble, and I hope I didn't totally irritate you.
Okay.